Well, for as good as he is as a golfer, and clearly you can see behind him, he's got some memorabilia and then the football stadium over the left shoulder. He played football at Indiana. He was also a wrestler. He's also really good at his job at ESPN. All of this to say, this is a big deal to have him on. Brett Bex is with me. You know him at ESPN, Director at Integration and Strategy at ESPN. And he joins me on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, and a national radio anchor, work for Tennis Channel. And this is a place where we go beyond just the work of what Brett does. And we learn about his personal life. We learn about his family life. Obviously, Brett, you've had a lot of your friends on here. So it
Yeah,
was only a matter of time until we got you on. And this is going to be a
love
lot
it.
of fun. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm pumped, super excited. Like we said, I love your podcast. I love really the family of network that you're building. And really it's amazing to me how the media industry feels so big, but it's truly so small. Being at ESPN for 19 years, you touch so many different people and so many people you work with. It really is just one big family that everyone's just at different networks.
Well, we're going to learn about the formula for which you've been able to have those 19 years and counting at ESPN. But I want to start here. Growing up, who was the best wrestler in the family?
Uh, I would say probably my dad. And that's the amazing thing was my dad was a national champ, but he never said it. I didn't know it. It's funny as I have two brothers, one younger, one older. Older brother went to Ohio State, was the finalist, lost to a guy named Bono. The little brother went to Penn State. He was an All-American, did really well. And I was this lowly guy, never an All-American. Both brothers were state champs, never a state champ. But it really, I think life takes turns. Life's really interesting where I was rated very high as a high school athlete. And I learned from an early age that what is in the moment can be taken away very quickly. So I was rated to win a state title, lost my state title, and lost all my scholarships that came with that. And I really learned that you can't you can't just live in the moment. You have to plan what's next. How are you going to work with the people around you, and then how are you going to build? And it was really a interesting moment that really propelled me kind of where I'm at in my career. I went to college to Indiana, played football and wrestled there. I had a scholarship to wrestle, broke my ankle in my sophomore season, then walked on to play football. And it was just hard work, determination, setting goals, and then really having a good circle around you to compel me what was next.
Obviously, there was a foreshadowing here in how you said that what you learned in college, what you did as a wrestler, and some of those interesting insights, how that would play into your success in what you would do now at ESPN. Brett Bex is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. The idea of you growing up with a couple of brothers, the sibling rivalry, what was that like at the dinner table, in the family room? I mean, what was that like?
To be honest, family to me, and it's who I am now, is most important. My parents really had three boys, and they grinded and worked hard and told us, values. My dad had his own business. My mom was a nurse and turned up to in the corporate world where it's really made you work hard for things, but you had to have a goal and a vision of what's next versus just going through the moments. And I had, two brothers. Older brother is 6 years older than me, and he was kind of the benchmark. What he did is where you set to go, and he was successful. And my little brother, it was amazing where we're 15 months apart. And it's interesting. I look back at it now and I was like, why was I so mean to him? Because now he's like my best friend.
Yeah.
But you're, grades, sports, whatever you did, who's going to eat the most at dinner table, who's going to get that best spot in line, who's going to be the making mom or dad happy it was a drive for both of us, and it really has made me a better person. And I really consider him my best friend because he knows me the most. We don't really talk. We probably don't talk every day, but there's not a moment I don't know if he's sad or if he needs something, or like we're there for each other. And we're kind of in a way twins, because every time growing up, everyone's like, "Are you guys twins? You look so much alike." But even though we're 15 months, and it was funny, as I was with my mom one day, I said, "Do you ever think about putting us in the same grade?" And she said, "No, you guys are too competitive because it just
Ah.
wouldn't work." So pretty interesting.
Where has he come to your aid the most in your life, growing up, and in the ways in which he's been there for you the most?
I think it's really honesty. I can ask him, say something. It's funny, is we're probably two different people, but we know we think the same. We have the same values. We have the same goals. We have the same drive. You want to do well for your family. You want to do well for others around you. And I think a biggest thing I've learned, it's not about you. It's about the people that are around you. How do you make yourself better? I'm lucky to have an amazing wife, Holly, where we really try to make sure that if everyone else is happy and everything is working, then we'll work as a family. We're going to be great together, or whatever it is in life. And then you come last, and it will all work out in the end. And it is.
When you say it is, what does that look like now?
I think it's joy. I think it's happiness. It's one of those where you wake up in the morning and you have that. We now have two kids. I have a son named John and a daughter named Lola. John's 2.5,
Oh,
and Lola's 2.5 months. So it's that excitement that we're creating a better life and great opportunity for our children. And to me, that's the purpose. That's the goal. I'm here. I'm going to do as best as I can. What's next? What's for my wife, or for my family? But it's really about my children and making sure everyone's happy, that we have a great home. And, we're killing it. We're doing well.
how often do you think of your children now while you're working and while you're putting in that time and doing great stuff at ESPN?
A lot. I think it's interesting in the part. I think the pandemic's probably the coolest thing that's happened, where we had our son a month before the pandemic truly happened. He was born in February, and happened in March, really, and we're home. I was able to spend time with the family, and I was able to really understand what family is. Being home for dinner, being there for dad, versus it's funny, if you ask my wife, I think I'm the best multitasker in the world. But you really realize, how are you there in the moment? How are you there for your wife? How are you there for your family? How are you there for the folks around you, versus doing yes, you can do all these things, but the most inspiring, or the thing I love the most, is being with my son or my daughter. They know when you're doing something else. How are you driving in that, where I'm here for you and let's do what we're doing, playing with the cars or playing with trucks, or how is that family life?
How do they communicate that to you, that they want your undivided attention, and they can tell that in the past, maybe, like you said, you're a multitasker, you wanted to do multiple things at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's an emotional thing. I think kids know if you're there on your phone. You're always having emails, people calling. It's how do you put your phone in a different place that you don't look at it? How do you turn the TV off? I think my son is very verbal and will tell you, "Dad, play with me, play." And we'll get on the ground, and he likes to be in the moment. He's an interesting kid, where he's not the guy that wants to just sit and watch TV. He wants to interact. He wants to play with his trucks. He wants to play with his toys. And that's fun. And it's grounding, that you can understand it and really be there for him.
And being there for him and watching him grow, Obviously, I'm sure that you recognize a lot of yourself at that age and you
Mhm.
growing up and reliving that. And that's got to be a lot of fun. What about your childhood? Is he getting beyond what you were able to get, where you have what you went through and then you want to add on to that experience for him and both of your kids?
No, I think it's a great point. It's exciting where, yes, I want my son to be athletic how I was, but I really learned where he's a different personality to my daughter, and he needs some things, and really understanding that what I want from him as a dad, I can't control that. I can't tell him, hey, once he's going to get down the line, to go to practice, you need to do this or that. It's going to be his choice. But my wife of Holly and I, that we want to put all the tools that he can choose what he wants. And that is really the fulfillment that I'm laying the table and setting that table to say, here are all your options. You pick. I'm actually going to listen and not say, this is what I want you to do.
I love that you let them make the decisions, and it's challenging because I'm sure, given your experience in life, it's like, hey, I kind of know what might be best for you, but you're able to kind of separate yourself from that. In looking at your career and looking at what you have done at ESPN, what is it about that journey where you've been able to channel what's best for you, but at the same time, taking something you said earlier in the conversation, and that is you'll put yourself last for
Yeah.
the betterment of the team?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is going back to kind of what I just said, listening and really understanding. I think the hardest thing when younger in my career, I really had a hard time with the corporate world where playing football or wrestling, I remember I had a coach that always said the film and the tape doesn't lie. That's what it is. You're in essence a sole contributor. You're doing the sport, you're doing it. In corporate world, it's a team, and you have to be able to be an advocate for yourself. But then as a leader, and as I'm going, being up in the kind of executive part, where it's I'm being a leader for the folks around me, that I'm pushing them up. One of the biggest things I tell my team and the folks that I work with is I don't want to be the face of what our team is. I want everyone else to get that shine, because if they get the shine, it's coming from higher up. And I want to have my bosses have that shine and have that where it goes back to the sports and it goes back to the team. And that's the exciting part and what really drives me.
I love that. It goes all the way back to, like you said, your athletic achievements and what you did there. And when you were coming out of college and you were figuring out what you wanted to do, the idea of you mentioned advocating for yourself, but what do you think are your best skills in the way in which early on, even now, you're able to
Yep.
market yourself?
I would say the biggest thing I've learned and what really has driven me to where I'm at is you have a skill or you have an athletic ability that can only get you so far. But how are you going to the next level? I tell people that yes, everyone wants to be that professional athlete, but that's that 1%. I was lucky enough that I got invited to a camp and I got cut. And I was like, well, why didn't I go further? Because I wasn't able to figure out how those next steps, what kind of now in my career, it's like, are you doing your research? Are you really having that purpose? What's that drive? What's pushing you to the next level? And that's what I really teach everyone now. And kind of what I'm doing is when you're going having a meeting with an executive or you're going having a business meeting to present, that you know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, you could go in and willy-nilly it and kind of make it through, but you want something that stands out. You want someone that says, oh, you know what, that Brett really knows his stuff, and he's actually and really wants the best for me, the company, and everyone else. And then you have people that you're supporters that's going to really drive with you and be there together.
Standing up for yourself, having yourself be in a position where others are vouching for you and seeing where that came from. I love how we can look at where you are now and we can take how that happened and go back years and go back years. And I almost feel like, in a way, I'm not a detective, but I love to be that empathetic sort of, like, some people even call me, Brett, like kind of a therapist,
You know,
like
it's great. No, you're right. You get, I think it's one of those like the Jerry Maguire type or that Roy Firestone where I'm not going to cry
yes,
on the couch. It's that amazing part where it's like what I love about this most and was I was so excited to do is like we didn't do a prep call. You know, it's like how does Bryan know this? And then it's that trigger. And you are that therapist. It's like, all right, I'm gonna let you in, but you're gonna have to give me something, and then we'll figure it out. And that's it's one of the powerful things is I have a kind of a personal person that I talk to, and they're not gonna he's not gonna talk to you unless you give him something. And that's what I really learn is you can't just raise your hand and say, I want this. You actually have to work for it. You have to work with the people around you and then dig deep and get that 1% to understand, all right, this is what it takes to get here. And then you're there. Then you're like, oh, I actually can go a couple more percentage. And that's where it's like unpeeling the onion. And then if you make yourself a better person, you're making everyone around you a better person. But the biggest thing of all that, what I tell everyone is don't just keep that inside you. You have to share it with people. Because if you don't share it, you're not making the people around you better. And one of the biggest things I want is I want someone to tell me the truth. Hey, Brett, you messed up here. You got to figure this out. And if I can make myself better, I can make my friends and my mentors and the people I work with around me better because you want a better life at the end of the day.
what does that better life look like? And obviously the work that you're doing with your colleagues, and when in obviously what you're doing at home with the family, but when is Brett Bex the happiest?
That's a great question. Just look at you digging deep. I would
That's what
say,
I do.
I know. I would say really it's when you have passion for something. I go and speak at colleges or people for mentorship, and one of the things I tell them is do something that you love. Where I am lucky, people say, what do you do for your life? I work in sports and I get paid to work in sports. I love sports. And if you have a passion for something or you enjoy the people you work around with, that's just going to make your life so much better. And then you wake up and say, all right, how am I going to kill it? How am I going to really make the group around me better? I can't imagine I've never had this and I never want that feeling to have a job that you're like, great, got to go to work today. Like, I don't have that. I have a bunch of people around me. I'm super lucky that I have a great core of kind of mentors from, Rob King and Wendell, Julie Schiff and Sharita, where I can say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. But those folks are in all different aspects of the business and what we do. So I'm getting a different opinion of thought that I'm not kind of staying in this one world where it's like, I want to raise my hand. I want to be challenged for the next part. And I want to make the organization better because that's what drives me. And I love where I'm at and I love what I'm doing.
The need to be challenged and thriving off of that, how does that come across when you're on the golf course?
Whew. I think that's a great. It's going back to being able to take risks but understanding what your risks are. If you're saying, I'm going to hit a 20-yard cut shot over a tree, I can vision it, but when's the last time I practiced that?
For sure.
It kind of goes the same thing in work and business. Is like, yeah, that looks great. I saw Tiger do it. I saw Rory do it. It can be done, but where have I put myself in the position to succeed and have done that? And that's where the thing I really love about golf is what you put in it is what you're going to get out. Luckily I'm a low handicap golfer, but right now my golf has gone up because of my family, and I love that. That is the best thing for me, and that's the best thing. But it's being in that golf. I love golf for the friendships. I love golf for the camaraderie, and the competitiveness is really honing in and saying, all right, I'm going to focus. I'm going to, make a birdie, make an eagle, make a par, and really grind.
There's so many similarities between, like you said, golf and life. And I love how you beautifully describe the connections there. So with that in mind, what is the work equivalent for you in crushing a drive, like I know you're known to do, 330 down the middle of the fairway?
There you go. I would say preparation and purpose, where understanding technology. I could play with a club that I played with as a kid that probably is only going to go 250 yards, but I could get a new shaft, I could get a new driver, and that's going to get me to the tee box. But what's going to make me not be nervous when all these people are around me? What's going to make me be able to execute? And just like in life and just like in work, what did I do to get to that moment? And how did I prepare? Do I have my notes? Who's in this meeting that I'm talking to? What are they looking to do? What's my objective? What's the purpose? And then being able to really, I look at one of our HR in Disney, and Paul Richardson's one of the greatest people to talk to, and he talks about the power of three and not just giving a ton of things and just having a purpose and really understanding what you're saying and be short, take a breath. That is, in being able to be concise on what your point is. I probably ramble a little bit, so I wasn't concise, but really honing that in and knocking that out.
That is as beautifully said, because it all makes sense now to see not just your dominion over the golf course, but as we kind of, and as you said earlier, this is about sort of unpeeling the layers of who you are. What I love about these conversations is that, sure, we'll talk a little bit about work, but I'm more interested in the mind. I'm more interested in who you are at the house and how those aspects influence you as a worker. And so my one of my final questions here for you, my final question for you, Brett, is the fact that you are a dad and you've got two little ones at the house, you've got a wife, you've got a great job. How has your perspective on life changed since you've been a dad?
It's a great question. I think it's one of those where when I was single, really trying to prop my career up, push hard, it was go, go, go. And I kind of going back to that purpose, like, yeah, I wanted to achieve, go to all these events. And, luckily I've done the events behind me, and I've gone to almost every sporting event you can. But it's one of those where there's nothing greater than being at the dinner table, 5 o'clock, sitting with your family and saying, how was your day? What did you do? And hearing that. that's what really drives me. That's what's exciting. And that's what wants me to wake up at 6 a.m. and really drive and saying, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to work hard, focus on what I'm doing in the moment, and then I can separate, but not dip my toe in different parts and facets, and really kind of going back is being in that moment and being a moment for my family. Really, I look at it as being in the moment for my coworkers, being in the moment for my wife, and really the aspect is that I'm giving you all of me in what I'm doing right now versus you get 50%, I'm not really listening to you, and it's not genuine to anyone else. And I really have learned that, and I would say my wife has taught me that the most. Is she's my best friend, to where it's like, all right, I can really understand what I have to do to make sure my family is first. And if you make your family first, then everything around you gets better. I feel that you're really honed in, you have a goal and a purpose of what you want everything to be.
What you said, I think, is the essence of everybody and how important it is that we all need to be, we all seek that validation in one way or another. And when you're able to give that to others with your full focus on them, they're going to give that back to you.
You're 100% right.
So having that at the home, having that at work, it all makes sense why you're having a lot of fun in this life and you're crushing it as well.
Thanks. You are
Brett,
too.
I'm trying, man. I
You're
really,
killing it. I love this. This is
I,
my favorite.
I love, you know what, this is, well, first of all, I'm so thankful that you've watched these. And as we build this thing and it grows, and I know I've had a lot of your colleagues on, but what I think the Brett is most fulfilling about these is that, yeah, we don't just go X's and O's about just work, 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 because sure, that's a big part of who you are. But when you look at the pie graph, there's also stuff at home. And like, how do you know what the person is like and how they work unless you know what they're like at home and how
Right.
much that plays off of things? So plus I'm an empath and I love to talk about in-depth issues and really get to a level of respect and understanding, and
Yeah.
appreciation for my guests.
Yeah. You're 100% right. And I think that's what I love about kind of what I do in my job, and love what I kind of do with my friends is it's a relationship, but it's also a partnership where how am I growing everyone together, that I'm listening and understanding what your needs are. And one of the things that we're doing at ESPN is growing brands and growing partnerships. One of the things I'm extremely lucky to do is manage the Nissan Heisman House campaign. We're year 12 of that. And that is all about growing, listening to what the fan wants, listening to what the client wants, listening what the trust wants. And it's really that partnership in working with everyone. And I love kind of what you're doing is really you're getting outside of the weeds of work,
Yeah.
but you really understand what's your base, what's your foundation. Anyone, not saying anyone could go and do a job, but if you have a base and a foundation saying, all right, I can get you here, what can you be taught? Are you coachable? Are you able to listen? Are you able to take instruction? That to me is the biggest thing down the road for anyone of growth.
And that's why, as we conclude this conversation, as I listen to you and we have this conversation, I think to myself, if you could have done it over again as a youngster with your brothers wrestling, that you would have been the best in the household, and you are selling yourself short. And who
No,
knows?
I love that and I appreciate that. But to be honest, I've think about that where I'm the one guy in my family not to win a state title. I'm okay with that because in the fact that that's my story.
Yes.
That's what has propelled me to where I am. to say you actually have to work harder. You actually have to drive. Yeah, I probably did all the things right leading up to that, but there's always one other thing that you could have done differently and think about. But really, at the end of the day, is I didn't succeed in that. How was I able to listen and adjust and take that feedback to say, all right, made a mistake here. This is what I need to do next. Or this is what I can teach the folks that work under me, or this is my friends. I can give them some advice. It's kind of like I said before, I don't need everything in here. I need to give it out. It's if I can make the folks around me better, that's the most important thing to me.
A blessing in disguise, how maybe you didn't hit all the accolades as a wrestler, but that actually, compared to your brothers, but that actually triggered this incredible career for you. And it
Yeah.
was the key launch pad where who knows where you would have been if you didn't have that extra edge that you carry with yourself to this day and has made you so successful. Brett Bex, ESPN ad integration and strategy there as their director. I'm Bryan Fenley with Tennis Channel and a national radio anchor. Brett, thanks for
Thank you.
opening up the way you did and the insights and speaking from the heart. I felt it, and I know everybody who watches this, it's also going to resonate with them as well.
Really appreciate it. Am I off the Budweiser hot seat now?
Yes.